What's up, everybody? It is the night before Investor Day. We have a full staff here. We're going to bring in Joe. What's up, man? Introduce yourself. What's good?
What's up, man?
Introduce yourself.
I'm Joe. I'm the president of San Joaquin Valley Tesla Owners Club. In the building, pregame, baby.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
and then we have Jeff. What's up? Introduce yourself.
Everyone, Jeff's here, and just been a long-time investor, fan of the movement, and have a specialty in supply chain. Glad to help.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And we have actual boots on the ground, Amy, and she is with a couple of familiar faces. Let's bring her in as well.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Let's do a quick. Yeah, where are you? Tell us where you are.
Everybody came to my hotel. We're at the W Austin. And here I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves.
Sure. So yeah, Brian from My Tesla Weekend. We're having fun. We're excited to find out what's about to happen because we have no real idea. So we got a big crowd and we've got some great people. And tomorrow's going to be insane. It's going to be a very long day. So I hope we'll be in your thoughts.
I'm Herbert from Brighter with Herbert.
What's up, Herbert?
Yeah. Matthew Donegan Ryan attending my first in-person Tesla event tomorrow at the factory, so can't wait to
He's going to be with me there.
Brian Hoff, cameraman. Hope to make some pretty pictures tomorrow.
And Amy again. I'm gonna log off. I'll go log back in for my hotel room where it's quiet.
All right. See you, Amy. Okay, so she will join us in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I think thank you, Jeff and Joe, for joining us. Actually, so we're not going to get quite into Investor Day yet, but I literally just got back from the Scotts Valley Supercharger in California.
I saw the video.
They literally just opened it up, 2 stations in all of California to all EVs. So that means that if you have a Rivian, Lucid, Ford Lightning, Mach-E, you can go there. And it was insane. So everyone was getting wind of it. You know, it was pretty much going viral. I had 3 F-150s show up, 2 Rivians. Like, they were just all like, they're all stoked to get the Tesla experience.
How'd they hear about it?
Dude, I have no idea. I just know that there was a Ford Lightning group. They all joined. And, a couple people from Monterey came up. And then, we had a person from the Silicon Valley come up. But, this community is so small. Everyone's super excited about this transition. And Tesla, they all have had experience with Tesla or they are all, even future Tesla owners. But most importantly, it's just crazy experience, so I can just kind of just dive into it. But yeah, so I watched the whole experience. Again, I posted a couple of tweets, and all they do is they open up the app. They literally just, they select the Supercharger in the app. So they have to obviously download that, which is obviously going to be a huge advantage for Tesla. They select the stall, they press OK, and then it's called a magic dock, which essentially allows them to kind of like pull it down. And it's, again, 2 separate things, right? So it's the regular Supercharger that's plugged into essentially a CCS adapter. And then what they're able to do from there is they're able to just stick it into their car and they're charging. The one thing is that they were complaining about the rates. So they were obviously all there to just like, test this thing out. But it was just pretty wild just to see, again, this movement. And I know, without saying any sources, I know they're going to talk about the supercharging and how they're going to get us to scalability tomorrow. And so this is all part of it. This is coming on the eve of all of this news. But yeah, what wanted to get your guys' thoughts? Feel free to jump in.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Just a question, John. They said they were concerned about the rates. Was it the charge rate or the cost per kilowatt hour?
The cost per kilowatt hour. So it was like 50 cents.
Yeah. And Tesla said that they were announcing a monthly membership program for non-Tesla owners. I think that came out this evening, which is good. So there's going to be it's going to be competitive, hopefully, and bring people in. So your question, John, was about tomorrow in the event?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but just because this is breaking news about them opening up the network. So just thoughts on that. And then once Amy jumps, joins us, we'll just jump back into Investor Day.
I actually think it's a good thing. I think, in certain areas there's congestion. So I think you have to think about it as like a shareholder, and you think about it as a user of the product. As a user of the product, I'm assuming that sometimes there may be some frustration, but I think with pricing and with kind of Tesla's approach to like making sure people aren't idling, they kind of get people in and out of these chargers. So I think they'll do a good job managing it. And again, they're going to double their footprint, I believe, by the end of next year. And, just like on the auto side, on the supercharger side, they've done a great job with simplification of design and cost structure. I think they're way ahead of the competition. So I think they're going to continue to be able to bring that cost structure down. And I think they're working on ways for faster deployment as well. So I think it's a great thing for a shareholder, because now Tesla's selling electricity. Right. Tesla's selling this product now, and they're going to have all this access to potential, future customers in terms of, what vehicles are they driving? How are they using the supercharger? So I think it's great all around, but it may be some momentary frustration for users, especially in congested areas.
I agree. I think you hit on something that I don't think a lot of people realize just yet, but they will soon realize, is that Tesla is an energy company and they are selling electricity. And I think also I was telling somebody after I saw your tweet, John, I was telling somebody, I was like, you realize that subscriptions is the way to go. That's how everybody's moving that way. We just found out right now that our freaking Comcast doesn't offer Netflix, because Netflix wants their own money separately now. So now they don't even have a package for it anymore. So, you know what I mean? Like, everybody wants their individual money. So for Tesla to be able to offer this to people, and now you have it's expensive, but it's the price of convenience, right? How often do we hear about EA's problems and all that? And so, like, until they get that network up and running, it's just going to be like, you want to choose Chevron gas or you want to go to freaking Valero? You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Or Rotten Robbie. Yeah. No, a couple of big things again before Amy joins us. So if you're joining and you're expecting to hear about Investor Day, we're just quickly talking about the Supercharger network opening. So obviously for Ford and Rivian, the way that their cars are built, it actually could cause an issue with how they charge specifically because of the way that they pull in. So if you watch one of the videos I had posted, the F-150 is actually blocking the stall where, my Model X would back into and then plug in. But because of the way that it's set up, so I think that's a call out. And then the second thing is that you have to get the F-150 super close, as close as you can. So I just wanted to call out those two things. I think Amy is just joining us, so I'll kind of wind this down. But yeah, I think, Jeff, I totally agree with you. This is going to be a huge win for Tesla, not only for the transition to a sustainable future, but it's going to be a huge win. It's an advertisement. Like, right. You go to EVgo, you go to Electrify America, you're using a third party, but now it's like an actual company. And again, as we know it, Tesla is an energy company. So
I mean, we still got to keep in mind this has already been happening in Europe and in in the UK. I don't hear anybody complaining about like I can't do this, I can't do that. So I think it's going to be fine.
Good point, Joe.
Hey, Amy.
Amy, what's up?
Amy.
Thanks for leaving the party to come hang out with us and have this discussion straight from Austin.
Yes, straight from Austin.
Boots on the
It's beautiful. It's the most perfect weather here. It's the ideal setting for the Tesla event tomorrow.
Nice.
Well, awesome. So let's just get into it. We were spending, while you were making your way from the bar up here with all the friends. Again, thank you for the time. We were just getting into the breaking news of Tesla opening up their Supercharger network, specifically in the U.S. I was just literally hanging out at one over in Scotts Valley. You're familiar with the area. And so, so we're talking about that. But let's jump into Investor Day. So we're all super excited. Amy's actually one of the few people that I even know that is actually going to the event. These Tesla events are kind of changing. If you look at the Cyber Rodeo, it was like really open to a lot of social media influencers, and they were really allowing a lot of people to come. But some of these events, they're really winding it down. Even Tesla AI Day and the engineering headquarters. Again, I knew some people that were there, but really, they're making these events, really small and tight knit. But I want to give a shout out to Amy because she wrote a blog post for our club on behalf of our club that just really detailed out almost every section of Tesla that you can imagine. And so, again, I want to pass you the mic, but feel free to check out that blog post. Again, it should be in the description or teslasiliconvalley.com/blog. But Amy, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited about this event. I do think it's going to be a really big deal. How can it not be when we've been waiting for years for Master Plan 3 and we finally get to hear some of those details tomorrow about how that's going to happen. And we already know some of the rough outline. So we know that Tesla wants to continue growing on a 50% year over year basis. But to be able to do that, they are going to need more products. We know that the Gen 3 platform is on the agenda for tomorrow. Specifically, it's mentioned. How detailed they get in the Gen 3 platform, well, we're all four of us are going to have different opinions. We'll talk about that. But it will definitely be something that we get to find more information about, which I'm super excited. And then Jeff Lutz is the perfect person to have here, because to be able to make these plans happen, it's going to be an enormous amount of tonnage of raw materials that has to come into play. It's going to be an enormous amount of pre-planning on the supply chain. And I think that we're going to get a lot more clarity about how they plan to do that. And I think Jeff is going to have a lot of information for us on that. I'm super excited. And then it will be the stepping of Tesla energy into the forefront, into people's minds that don't follow Tesla as obsessively as all of us for. They still think of Tesla as only an auto company, and they're about to have their minds blown that there's so much more to Tesla than that.
Yeah, well, what are some of the top things that you're personally excited about? What are some things that you're hearing? So maybe you could highlight, and then we'll kick it to Jeff. Highlight some of the things that you're most excited about, some of the things that people are talking about that you don't think are going to actually be there. But what are some of those, like, in those two categories?
I am most excited about Tesla energy stepping into the forefront. For years, Elon Musk has said that energy has had the ability to be much bigger than auto, but they were component constrained. They simply did not have enough battery materials to be able to ramp energy and auto at the same time. And they chose auto first, and they just had to be one or the other. It could not be both. But as of last fall, we know that changed. Martin Viecha said at a Goldman Sachs conference, I believe it was, that Tesla was no longer constrained on battery minerals and was going to be able to ramp both energy and auto at the same time. This is a huge, huge thing that all the four of us understand, but I want everyone to understand how big this is, because Elon Musk has always said that energy has had the potential to be so much bigger than auto. And right now it is growing at a much faster clip than auto. And we know that the Mega Pack has a couple years backlog in orders, a very profitable product for them. So I'm really excited about that. As to the second part of your question, of course, the Gen 3 platform, I geek out on engineering completely. I'm like this whole systems engineering gal. So what they need to do to be able to produce one car and the time and the effort that it takes to produce two cars, in the time and the effort it takes to produce one Model 3 currently, that amount of efficiency of the materials from the moment that they leave the mine to they come into the door, to the process in the factory, to when the car goes out of the factory, to be able to make that all happen, I think it's just going to be a complete wonder of the best world-class engineers working at their top level to make that happen. And as much insight as they can give us into that, I am super excited about that. Then there's the other things that we know will be really huge for Tesla in the future. I just don't know how in depth they'll get about it this day. And that's Optimus. Like Elon Musk has said, Optimus might be Tesla's most important product. That's bigger than everything else combined. So do we see Optimus at all tomorrow? Do we see anything about the AI? And what do we learn about full self-driving? I mean, those are all things that are on the table. It's going to be a very exciting day. Definitely.
Jeff, let's kick it to you.
Yeah, I think it's a great intro, great overview, and I love the blog too. Amy, thanks. I'm excited. I kind of have a background in product, supply chain, unit economics, and I believe that Tesla's approach is about solving for profitability and unit economics first, and figuring out the engineering solutions and the steps to get to that first. and then they ensure the functionality is there and the form is there to make, you know, a great experience for consumers. So I do believe that they do start at like the consumer pain point and work back, but I also believe that they're very regimented and they're very focused. They don't have this thing of like, well, we've done it this way forever. I believe a lot of what goes into Gen 3 is going to be, you know, almost from the ground up. And I do believe that they're going to be able to drive COGS reductions somewhere in the 30 to 40% range. Now, these things, you know, it may not happen, you know, day one of launch of that, but it'll be something where it's possible, and it's something they work on a learning curve, you know, over time and get there. But I believe Gen 3 is not just, you know, for one product or for one tier. I believe it's a different way of making an automobile, both from the design and engineering perspective, as well as how the factory is designed to build the product. And if you start at the factory and kind of work backwards, I believe it's going to be about time and velocity through the factory. And it's going to be about the removal or reduction of processes or touches or time involved or amount of CapEx involved to produce a vehicle from front to back. They basically want to reduce the number of steps and interactions involved, because when you eliminate a process, you've heard the best process is no process. The best part is no part. They actually preach that, and you see them doing that. That's how you saw them re-engineer the chassis on the Model Y to reduce that amount of body mechanics down to a few parts. I believe they're going to take it a step further with this platform. And again, we kind of focus on this platform of like, can it produce something in the COGS range of 17,500 to 20, 21,000, something in that range. But I believe they're going to take this methodology and they're going to be able to solve for that tier, which is obviously going to open up a huge amount of TAM. But I also believe they're going to be able to copy it or use this methodology to build something like a Cybertruck, to build something at multiple tiers and multiple form factors. So Gen 3 is a new way of engineering and producing cars, automobiles, products in the factory. And I believe that's going to be kind of, and again, sorry for going so long on this, but
no, you're fine, man. You're preaching the gospel right now.
But I believe what I focused there was the cost structure. They if they resolve the cost structure, the scale comes with it. Because this is where conventional auto is stuck right now, because they don't want to scale at negative gross margins or 1% or 0% gross margins, because that's going to be a loser, especially with normal variation. So that's where they're stuck, and Tesla's already had. And so right now, conventional auto is trying to catch up to where Tesla is, and Tesla's going to introduce kind of their next quantum leap that they're going to get to. So that's what's super exciting. I think that, again, in summary, they're going to solve for unit economics to solve for scale, and that's going to enable the mass scale. Final thing I'll say is I believe they're going to get a little bit more in depth about expanding their approach to vertical integration. They've already been incredibly vertically integrated in terms of their factory processes and the way they engineer a product. They're highly, highly vertically integrated, not unlike any other auto manufacturer. And I believe that they're going to expand upon that into the raw material side. And they're going to, I think the next announcements in terms of factory locations are going to really focus on, can they bring the raw material side closer and the processing of that closer to the actual production of cars? Because they already made that next step in terms of battery production, where they do system integration and build the car. That was a huge step. And now I believe they're going to take the next step with that.
One question before I want to kick it to Joe was, so do you think that the Gen 3 platform will come with a new product reveal tomorrow? Or do you think that the next gen platform is a new way of, building vehicles? I wanted to kick that to Jeff specifically, just given
it is possible, right? We've seen, it's possible that they'll, announce the intent to produce a certain vehicle type, whether it's a compact car, whether it's a robotaxi, whether it's something else. I also believe there is going to be an announcement about the Model 3 or its new name or whatever it's going to be called. I mean, they're driving some vehicle around right now with covers on it, and that's not for their health. They're doing that to probably take that COG structure down. I would say maybe 15%. Maybe they're going to take a meaningful step from kind of conventional Model 3 production down, just with the castings and probably some wiring changes and who knows, a multitude of other changes. I mean, the product's been out of production for a while. So I believe there'll be kind of a right away, like we're going to go fill this hole in the portfolio at this price tier with what we've been doing with Model 3. But I do believe, the Gen 3 platform will spawn just many different form factors. And it's just a new way of building the vehicle with a high reduction in complexity through technology and really solving problems that other companies either haven't put the R&D behind or don't have the capability. Remember, not every Tesla competitor has a rocket company attached to their company where they can do all the metallurgy and solve for the physics.
Mic drop.
They're solving. They're like, oh, we're having this problem in crash testing or crump. Okay, well, let's go change the metallurgy so we can be at this size, this mass, this weight, so we can reduce the battery size by this. And let's go solve the metallurgy problem. Now, that's not to say that other auto manufacturers don't work without COA, don't work with steel. Of course they do. But I believe there's a much, much, much higher level of development of kind of innovation on the metallurgy side with what Tesla and SpaceX are doing. So I'd be excited for them to talk about how they're bringing that into making lower cost vehicles.
For sure. All right, Joe, let's get your thoughts, man, on tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with a lot of that. I think something you hit on there was the fact, not only the rocket business, but the fact that where everybody's trying to get to is Tesla's already going to be past that, and that has always been the thing that's. I mean, Tesla came out with the skateboard platform, right? They have this new way of doing things now where they got the castings. Now everybody's trying to do a skateboard platform. You know what I'm saying? It's like they are behind Tesla so many years that it's going to be hard for them to catch up. And just like you say, Tesla keeps moving the goalposts. They're trying to catch up to Tesla today, but Tesla's already thinking about the future and so far beyond it. It's just going to be crazy. You add that onto the fact that now you're dealing with a company that also is cohesive with freaking SpaceX. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about space scientists with engineers. Like, dude, it's pretty much game over. But I don't think I personally don't think the goal is to end like everybody else. You know what I mean? I don't think they're really trying to be the best of everybody. I think it just happens to just end up being that way. You know what I mean? Like look at the Supercharger network, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Like Tesla didn't do that because they wanted to. They just happened to make a car that required a certain type of fuel. So they had to make the fueling station for it because nobody else had it. So, you know what I mean? Like they just keep falling into these things that they have to do. And they're just the first mover of it. So they just have to make those steps. And now everybody's just going to fall behind trying to catch up. But I think just like people say this all the time, they compare Tesla to the iPhone. And I think it's literally like that type of thing. Like iPhone spawned so many things, you know what I mean? And everybody thought, oh, well, that's never going to last. And so is going to kill it and blah, blah. But it doesn't matter. You have LG, you have Samsung, you know what I mean? You have all these companies that are making cell phones and they all make them just like iPhone does. I mean, they make them differently, but it's all one screen. You know what I mean? Everybody makes phones with the screens on them, and it hasn't killed iPhone. So I think we're stumbling into that same type of where people just do that, where they think, oh, it's going to be the failure of them because of this, and they keep stumbling onto that, but it's never going to be that way because, like you said, like Jeff said, I mean, the TAM is just going to grow. Like you have like Tesla making cars, and then like, okay, everybody's like, okay, well, we can make cars too. That's just going to grow the TAM. Like there's just no way about it. And to think like, oh, well, their sales are going to fall off. Well, there's so many cars sold. Like the ICE cars are sold every year. And once you start eating into that, like they have been, like it's going to get crazier and crazier. And people always like to harp on the fact that, oh, Tesla's losing sales and this and that. But I don't think that's a problem because the TAM just grows. And so even if Tesla falls down to like 5%, but their 5% is 30 million vehicles, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no problem there. So yeah, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff and Amy, you guys were both just dropping dimes and just knowledge as far as what they're going to do. I mean, the fact that this company, just runs ruthlessly. It's unlike really any other company I've really ever seen where they're not okay with the status quo. What you see happening at Twitter is the Elon way, where you're running 250 miles an hour. You're not okay with just, the way things have been, and you're constantly changing things. And that's ultimately what we're seeing. But I wanted to kind of also just post another question. Like, what are some potential hidden gems that are gonna be shown? And Amy, even potentially you're gonna be walking the factory. Do you think you're gonna be seeing a Cybertruck production at all? Or like, what are some hidden gems that may happen tomorrow?
It's hard to tell if the tour is going to be the most advanced production line. So we know that the Cybertruck line is in the process of being tooling, that it's going to have a midsummer date for the first vehicles rolling off the line. So that could be the most advanced production line. Or is it the Model 3 line with the Highland project that we know that they're working on, where we're going to see likely more castings involved? And right now a Model 3 costs a lot more to produce than a Model Y, and the reason for that is that it was the first car that Tesla produced, and they weren't able to maximize on all the efficiencies that they've learned that they then utilize with the Model Y. And so they're going back and they're going to look at the Model 3 production, and they're going to refresh that, and they're going to highly simplify that. And then while they're looking at the Model 3 production, they're also working on developing a Gen 3 platform. And they have things that Tesla is learning from how they're going to engineer this Gen 3 platform too, that they're not going to wait until the first Gen 3 platform car rolls off the line. They're going back and they're redoing their lines as much as they can right now and gaining all efficiencies they can. Because the one thing that we know about Tesla is that they are hyper focused on cost reduction. They're hyper focused on making an electric vehicle affordable to the most massive market they can. And now they're also hyper focused on what we're going to hear about in Master Plan 3. And in my mind, that is, how do we get to the end goal, which is really important, of moving the world to a sustainable energy future? And that's not just autos, because autos is maybe a quarter of that solution. That is also Tesla Energy, that's Tesla Solar, that's maybe Tesla Bot, taking away some of these repetitive tasks and dangerous tasks that people can't do. AI, full self-driving, that puts the cars on the road at use of a lot more. So we're going to see a lot of that. So the answer to the question of which production line, I'm really, really curious to see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one that they consider the most advanced.
Would they
at this moment?
Yeah, would the Model 3 production stay in Fremont and it just be focused on the Model Y? Because I think is the Model 3 selling at these crazy volumes? Obviously not probably even compared to the Model Y, but I know that for sure Giga Austin is definitely doing the Model Y and Cybertruck. But I haven't heard, I don't know, have you heard, are they going to do the Model 3?
I don't think they are planning to do the Model 3. So then that leaves, you're correct on that. So that really narrows down the options, right?
Yeah.
To Cybertruck, Model Y, or Gen 3 platform.
Yeah.
And of those, if those are our options, then Cybertruck would be the most likely to be the most modern production line that's ready to be shown for people. I mean, it's a mile walk through the factory. it's going to take 60 to 90 minutes. So it's not like it's going to see a couple of stations on a production line. We're seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, when I was at the Cyber Rodeo, it was literally a 30-minute walk, and that was even me hauling for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff, did you want to chime in on, what you think about any production lines or just really any hidden gems that you may see tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great to see the production line. Hopefully they've got, some work in process and you can actually see it flowing through. And hopefully they call out kind of like what makes, some of these things special or some of these stations special or is this going away? I think it'd be interesting to hear. In terms of hidden gems, I mean, a factory opened in Lathrop, California and is building, Megapack 2 XLs. We've had a 60-second, video and a couple of posts on Twitter. I'd have to think that that's going to be part of Master Plan 3 and part of solving, kind of the energy solution for Earth. So in terms of, I don't know, it is kind of a hidden gem because it is somewhat being hidden. So I'd love to hear more about that. That would be the one that I'm looking forward to hearing about.
Joe, any thoughts for yourself on hidden gems or the production line?
Well, I'm right down the street from the Megapack factory in Lathrop, so yeah, that place cranks like it's madness. Like to see the trucks coming out of there and everything, it's pretty wild. But I know people really are loving and wanting to see like that smaller vehicle probably roll out, and I think they might touch on that a little bit. But I think it's really going to be about Cybertruck production, because that, as we all know, Elon said, this is going to be the best vehicle they've made, and I think a lot of these processes have to start with that, like what's going to be with hardware core and all this type of stuff. I think it all starts with Cybertruck. I think it branches off of that, where I'm pretty sure a lot of those processes, like I think single casting is probably going to happen for the Roadster and things like that. But I don't see them releasing that smaller vehicle. And I know everybody wants them to do that, but I think a lot of the talk might be about how they're going to get the batteries to do that. So, I mean, for me, I just think the hidden gem is just going to be mostly about the processes of the Cybertruck and how they plan to scale up, how that is going to be, how it creates, like, it's just a ripple effect of everything else, right? You need to scale up this truck. You need to scale up the batteries for it. You need to scale up like the supply chain for it. And I think that's going to create a ripple effect on everything else. I don't think they're going to do, like you say, I agree with the fact that I cannot see them making Model 3 there. I can see them doing this smaller vehicle there because the factory is so huge. I don't see why they wouldn't. But, man.
So one rumor I heard coming out of China is that they were looking at making the Model 3 and the Model Y on the same line.
What? Oh my gosh!
That's
Imagine
crazy.
if we heard that tomorrow. I mean, like if they made the production so efficient that they could send down a batch of Model Ys and a batch of Model 3s.
I mean that I could see that happening because like in connecting the dots latest video, he was talking about how they're stockpiling. You know what I mean? Like one series of castings, right? Like the front and rears.
Yeah.
So and then you just change the dies. You've got like thousands of castings already made for the Model Y. Now you change the dies, and now you're just freaking cranking out Model 3 castings. I could see that happening. That would be freaking
nuts. that would have, I mean, just tremendous impact on the unit economics. I mean, you talk about the platforming you'd have, the utilization would go up, right? Utilization's a big driver of your total capex in unit economics, and it's also a big driver of your labor spend. If you have less, less stoppage, you have more productive use of your labor, your total labor rate, your total labor spend can go down. So that would be huge. The one thing I think Joe kind of reminded me of the other kind of thing I'd be looking for, which is a 46. I mean, Tesla is now making their own battery cells, and they've been doing that now for over a year. So a 4680 update in terms of where are they at on the ramp curve? Have they solved those difficult problems? How many vehicles worth of production are available, and where do they see that going? Because when you're making your checklist of like what distinguishes Tesla from other companies, it's a very long list. I think we talked about the whole thing of like you have a rocket company kind of attached to you that can help you on the engineering side with metallurgy, but now that you're producing your own battery cells and then assembling them, I mean, BYD does that, but there's nowhere else in the auto industry where you have that. So a huge advantage. Obviously, then it's a huge advantage for Tesla on the supply chain side, because now they know that whole unit economic stack, and now they can actually go and negotiate backward, because they do want all of those other partners on the battery side. They want them healthy. They want them, supplying and reserving capacity for Tesla. And they want to work with Tesla too, because Tesla has a surety in demand. They've done nothing but grow, very predictable, few number of models. They don't have 50 models where you're trying to figure out what configuration they're building. They're going to change demand on you. So I think Tesla is great from a battery supplier perspective to work with. And I also think they're dangerous in terms of their knowledge now of building their own and leveraging their own capacity and cost structure. So I think a 4680 update of like, how are we doing building our own batteries would be very important.
Yeah, I think everything everyone is saying is just gold. I think, the way, so it's interesting, right? Like in my head, I think of like them releasing the compact car, that's a new product. But for them, releasing a gigafactory is a new product, right? Every single production line, every single factory that they're creating is a new way, a new innovation, almost a new vertical in a lot of ways. Because it takes all of the history and all of the knowledge that they have from the other 3 or 4 factories, and then they're able to integrate that into, whatever they launch next. And I think I don't think I've ever seen a company where they could literally be, one day making a car a certain way, and literally the next day they're making it different. They're moving at such a fast pace where they're deleting parts as it's literally going down the production line. I mean, probably not as crazy as they were, during the early days. But that's how it was. I mean, it's one of those things where, this was more on the solar side, but I remember I was installing 2 power walls on my house, and I believe it's the Gen 2 ones. And I literally had probably the best Powerwall installation technician. I mean, he had actually helped install Powerwalls down in Boca Chica with Elon like 3 weeks before he came and did it at my house. But he was talking about how fast the Powerwall, even the actual the way it's made, is just changing, and they can't even keep a handbook. They're constantly training every week, and so it's almost one of those things where you're learning on the fly. I scheduled my CCS retrofit today. And they said, I asked, hey, can it be done by a mobile worker? They're like, yeah, that's what we're told. But they don't even know how it's done yet. I mean, it hasn't even been communicated how to do it. And so I agree with everything that y'all are saying. It's one of those things is this company is prioritizing ruthlessly. They're not only prioritizing, they're cutting costs by creating, like, as we know, just new production lines, new iron castings, which are eliminating tons and tons of parts of the production line. So I don't know. It's just it's pretty exciting to see that. But I think what else do you think could be mentioned tomorrow? I think, and I know Herbert and had mentioned this a lot in his and even Alexandra and Jeff and Amy. I know you've been in some of his live streams, but obviously, Investor Day didn't happen since 2019. And so what do you think, do you think there's going to be a reassurance to investors, especially as we know there's been a huge fallout of a lot of retail investors because they all kind of jumped on the bandwagon when it was at like all-time highs? And, do you think that investors need to hear more reassurance, or do you think at this point, after Q1 deliveries, after beating, earnings and the reassurance of getting potentially, of course, Elon had to drop they were guiding to 1.8, but Elon dropped a little tidbit to hit 2 million. So, from an investor standpoint, outside of like what you're going to see, what do you think is going to be talked about or told to investors?
From my perspective, I think that it is important for investors to keep their own, John, I've talked to you about this in the past. You need to look at your own personal finances and determine what money can you afford to put aside for a few years if you're a long-term investor. And if you're a long-term investor, then we almost have too much information available to us right now. If you're a long-term investor, the weekly insurance numbers in China really should not matter that much to you. It's not indicative of anything long-term, especially if you have Chinese New Year thrown in there, if you have sunsetting incentives that were offered to EV people that aren't there, purchasers that aren't there now. This isn't that important to you. What is more important to you is a long-term investor, and Tesla can't give you this mindset. You have to give yourself this mindset, and this is why I'm now a public face. When I was invested in Tesla since the IPO, and I was never a public face before, is when I look at Tesla, I look at how big are their goals, what is standing in their way from achieving these goals, and do I think they're going to do it? And if I think they're going to do it, what do I think, just back of the napkin math, the company is going to be worth at the date that they do it? And that is where I come up with my investment thesis. And the people that do these intricate models, we definitively need them too, because not everybody has a long-term time frame on when they need to spend that money. And they need to be able to have more assurances for 1 year or 2 years or even 6 months, what might happen with the stock. But if you have money that's in a long-term investment, do yourself a favor and start asking yourself the bigger questions, the type of Elon Musk first principle questions that he asked. Is this scientifically possible? Can we make this happen? And how are we going to make this happen? And then when you evaluate Tesla in those terms, that's why I'm so excited about Master Plan 3, because I want to see Tesla being super, super ambitious. I want to see the goals to be enormous. I want to see the pathway to making Tesla as big as Apple and Aramco combined, the biggest company in the world, and how they intend to get there. And then I want to see some of the details. And I think why they call this an investor day is that needs Wall Street's buy-in. When you have goals this ambitious that I think we're going to see to create a sustainable future, you need Wall Street on board saying, we're going to finance this. We're going to give you a little bit of time to execute this. And we don't care what China's weekly sales numbers were this week, because we think that in 5 years, Tesla is going to be here. It's going to be the biggest corporation on the pathway to the biggest corporation in the world. That's my opinion about it.
I 100% agree. And I think that's probably why we will not see the robot. I think the robot is a 5 to 10 year horizon thing. And I think you will not see anything mentioned of Optimus, because Wall Street kind of views that as not real. And I think they're going to have to see things that are tangible, that are like a year or 2 years out. Like everybody, I watched Dan Ives, and he's 18 months, 12 to 18 months. Everything's like 12 to 18 months. So to them, like if it's not going to happen now or tomorrow, which to them is like in 6 months, then they don't see it as real. You know,
that's a really good point.
So, I mean, I was just thinking that. I don't know what Jeff has to say, but.
Yeah, Jeff, feel free to jump in the ring.
Yeah, I love the points from Amy and from Joe. It's kind of like, looking far out and being ambitious, and also like, okay, can you be somewhat tactical about what you're releasing? Because I think what's going on, you have analysts, institutions, smaller firms, then you have retail investors, and you have, people that are invested, and you have people that are not invested, that may be watching this event. So I do think you want to hook people in terms of, we're an ambitious company. We've always been, from Master Plan 1 and from 2, and look at what we've accomplished, from these master plans. I've always said, if you listen to some of the broadcast I'm on, if you want to understand where Tesla is going, follow what they're doing from a capacity perspective, because it's really going to, that's when I was excited when I saw Investor Day and they said we're going to talk about capital allocation. It's kind of a bit of a dry topic, but if you're, if you're really like into this stuff, it definitely piqued my interest. But I think they have to be ambitious, and it has to be, talk about like where the path to 20 million. What are the roadblocks? What are the things that they see today? How are they getting through those roadblocks? Not like step by step per se, but like, yeah, we're gonna buy this refinery. We're gonna start building factories on top of these raw materials. Like, these are the ways that we're gonna solve problems in the future. And then and we're confident in getting there, and we're confident in getting there from a cost structure perspective. And I think they need to go and be a little bit more like Joe said, 18 to 24 months of, this is what you're going to see from us. And I do think that they need to get a little bit more into the energy space because that's been kind of shrouded in a bit of mystery. And I do believe that they need to, put something out there on the energy side, and then as well as on the auto side. What people are a little bit concerned about when I'm totally with what Amy's saying. Like, we shouldn't be worried about, like, was it, 10,000 units last week in China or 12? But what there are concerns about are there, areas where there's issues with demand in certain pockets in certain areas in certain weeks. But if you present something that says, look, got it, this is our portfolio today, and this is where we're playing. Boom, this Model 3 that we've been working on for the last year, it's going to come in at this price point, and we're going to solve that problem. And just talk a little tactically about how they're going to solve some of these and just bring the cost structure down. Tesla knows, as they bring their cost structure down, they bring their MSRPs down, they advance their mission. So I believe it's going to come back to that, of like solving for the cost structure. How are we bringing it down? What opportunities does this bring? And articulating that to the audience. And that's going to be super exciting because I think there'll be something there for the analysts, and there'll be something there for the people that are kind of just genuinely interested in the mission and investing behind that. So you have batteries, you've got energy, you've got auto, and then who knows if they get into the AI side of it and how their services side is going to add to it, because that's becoming a very big, we started with superchargers, how is that going to grow over time? So there's just a number of things, but I think they do have to get somewhat tactical. And as Amy said, they have to be kind of like show the kind of the grandiose vision, but reveal more information of like how we're going to get to that.
Yeah, I think when I step back, and I think Jeff and Amy, maybe you had, I forgot who said it, but what matters is that there's never been a company that is more vertically integrated, more so than Tesla is becoming and has become, and where they're headed. And I think that's what ultimately gets me super, super excited about where this company is headed. Because I think, like, I got over $310 this year from having my house be a virtual power plant for selling my energy back to PG&E. Now I go to a Tesla Supercharger, and again, they have a rocket company, so now there's like Wi-Fi hooked up to it. And at some point, they'll probably hook up the solar panels, and some of their superchargers have that. But the whole system, they are creating the whole ecosystem. And I can't, it's crazy because again, 5 years ago, I was talking to Jeff, Amy and Jeff, and even Joe, you all have been following Tesla like probably double the amount of time that I have. And here the company could barely put out 5,000 cars a week. And this guy's sleeping on the factory floor at Nevada and at Fremont. And, they had this vision. They're like, if we can somehow get past this week, we're going to be, this is what we want to do. And yet they're able to like somehow get through that. And it's really, again, it comes down to Elon's work ethic, being there on the front lines so the workers can see that he cares. He's not just a billionaire that's just going to, build a factory and then just peace out. He's literally there on the ground working with you. But it's just insane to think that 4 years ago, they were almost bankrupt, and now they're executing, and they actually have a path, as we all said. There's so many verticals within the whole Tesla ecosystem. And again, obviously they reap the benefits of SpaceX and stuff. But yeah, so I think that's huge. But any additional thoughts? But otherwise, Jeff, I would love to get your thoughts, and Amy as well, especially given the blog on capital allocation. It's kind of boring, but it's also too, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff is very important for where this company is headed.
Amy, please.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is what I know that the rest of people might not know, is this actually a very long day. There is going to be a lot of time spent with Wall Street analysts answering their questions to maybe a more granular detail than is released just in the keynote speeches. So the day starts at 11 a.m. and it ends at 7 p.m. I think there's also going to be time spent making Wall Street analysts comfortable with all the leaders of different divisions with Tesla and what the succession plan is for Elon Musk, and how these plans are very much in place. So that's separate from capital allocation, but I thought that was an important note because I have that information. From the capital allocation standpoint, Tesla has always been exceptionally good at defining their plan, saying, okay, so if we want to get to 1 terawatt hour of energy produced per year, backing that up every year, how much supply do we need? So in 3 years from now, how much supply do we need? And Jeff Lutz will talk about this more in a second. Now we're going to go to our suppliers and we're going to tell them, we're going to need this amount of tonnage in 3 years. Can you supply it? If they can't supply it, Tesla gets into the business themselves. They take everything the suppliers can give to them. They vertically integrate for what the suppliers
Can you
can't
imagine?
give to them.
Sorry, I just want to hit on that. If someone else can't do it, they end up getting in the business. Like they didn't want to get into the mining business, but they did because they want to control the full process.
Exactly. Well, and it's not even just control the full process. It's if they want to know that they have this plan that they're executing on, and even though Wall Street is forecast in 12 and 18 months, Tesla is not. And we just saw deals in the last couple of weeks for offtake agreements starting the year 2025 for battery minerals coming in the door in Tesla, where they were guaranteeing a fixed price that they were going to pay for that. So Tesla is way far in advance. They know the end goal, and they're hyper focused on this tonnage of materials and logistics of getting it there. And I think that we're also going to hear a little bit of the capital allocation of moving the supply as close to the factory as possible, and all the steps of the logistics chain of being as hyper focused on efficiency from getting the materials out of the mine in the door, using 100% of the materials when in the factory. We know that they take the excess aluminum from the stamping, or the extra metal from the stamping machine that they don't use, and they throw it in the melted pot at the gigacaster. And they use it there. They try and use 100% of the materials that come in the door. So we're going to hear about that. We also should hear some broad terms of capital allocation in, if we want to get to this number of megapacks produced in a year, if we want to do some massive solar farms, which is a possibility if they think that the permitting process is too slow on individual solar houses, on solar on houses, and power packs on people's houses. If that's too slow, so Tesla might start thinking bigger and think giant solar utility farms with mega pack installations next to it. They have the goals in mind, and then they backdate how many factories do we need to deploy and when. And so the details might be, expect to see so many mega factories per year, expect to see so many gigafactories per year, expect to see so many tonnages of battery materials, and announcements in the mining space and the announcements that are coming down the road. I don't think they're going to necessarily give the analysts, at least in public, more actual information than that, but we'll see what Jeff thinks. He's got a lot of expertise in this area.
Well, thanks for going through that, Amy, and thanks for the insight in terms of like how the day is going to progress. And I mean, that's going to be new information for the listeners. So that's awesome. And I love your points too. I believe one of the things that makes Tesla unique, and John, I think you brought this up earlier, is the factory is actually a product. It's a portfolio. Like they have a portfolio of auto they're going to ship. They have a portfolio of stationary energy products. They have a portfolio of battery solutions. And then as a company, and this is unique. You do not see this everywhere. I believe they have a portfolio for their factories and for the automation and CapEx structure in their factories. And what is that factory? So the factory that was, the two factories that were built, in the last, year, right? Austin and Berlin, I believe that they had a capital structure. They had, an output per square meter. They had a velocity kind of profile on the factory in terms of output. And, that produced, 500,000 vehicles a year. So I believe they're starting at the cost structure point and they're going to build out. So I believe they're going to show us how they're going to engineer a simplified car with advanced features, how they're going to engineer the manufacturing solution to build that car with simplified processes, with reduced steps, with greater velocity, greater output per square meter. And then that's going to actually define what a new factory is. And a new factory may be 1 million or maybe 1.5 million units per year, based on the square footage and amount of acreage. So, that's going to be fascinating in terms of capital allocation structure. I believe that they're going to be actually able to ratio it of, the engineering work we do, all the way starting from Franz's team, all the way from kind of the industrial design space, all the way through to the factory. I believe they're going to redefine the output, get down to the true efficiency metrics of the output per square meter in the factory and the units per hour, or the velocity through the factory, and how long does it take to make. So once you redefine those things, that's part of the Gen 3 package in my mind. And then that will define that vintage of factory. And that's going to be exciting. I believe that's how they're going to define the capital structures. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to be how much CapEx is actually in the unit economics to get one vehicle from the beginning of the factory to out the door. And I believe they're going to meaningfully influence that number from prior generations. I'm sure they're not going to show us, absolute numbers, but they may be able to show us percent reductions from a prior generation. And then just extrapolate that thinking to battery production, extrapolate that thinking to the other things that they do. And you have a company that's not idling. They're not sitting still. They're kind of like, what's the next, what's Gen 4 look like? So you better believe that once Gen 3, is kind of ready to go and they start pulling down to make product off of that, there'll be a team working on what Generation 4 is. Generation 4 factory, Generation 4 engineering design on electrical, mechanical, industrial design. But I believe from a capital perspective, they're really going to tie it to the efficiency of the factory. And it's to me, it's one of the more exciting things, because I haven't seen a newer or meaningfully different way to make a Ford F-150 in many years. I'm not professing to be an expert in terms of like what they've done every year, but if you just look at the cost structure and gross margin structure, you think if they were meaningfully innovating on that platform, they would be able to advance their gross margins meaningfully. So.
Yeah, you made a huge point there. Joe, did you want to chime in on anything that was said?
No, I mean, I noticed in the chat there was a talk about mentioning more megapack factories, and hopefully that's something that they mentioned. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, that is, I mean, it's just batteries in boxes, right? Like, like that's like, man, no wonder that energy business could scale so much more than the auto business, because you're literally just putting the batteries in the boxes and shipping them out. And when I sat there with Bradford Ferguson, he camped out all night. Me and him were there, and I mean, every few hours they're just rolling out of the factory, just like, I mean, it's not, and it's 24 hours. I mean, they're working 24 hours. They're not shipping them out 24 hours. They build up the parking lot, and then they're just moving them out. Like, but it's like constant. So if they could make another megapack factory, like if they do what they're doing with the gigafactories and create a mega factory on each continent, where they want to place, energy businesses. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like, they could build that in Australia. They could build that in China. I mean, just like creating those megapack factories would be amazing. But again, we're talking about all these things, but they all are intensive on the battery production side. So these raw materials are going to have to, which is why, like Amy said, like, I mean, we just heard recently about that contract in 5 years, like, I mean, or 2025, not 5 years, but so that's just one of the things that Tesla's thinking about, because they know the tonnage is going to be massive. and all these things that we're talking about. If we can think about these things, and they're thinking way past that. And so all these things are going to become intensified when and I think that's going to require them to like really kind of spoon feed it for the analysts. Like they really have to understand that we need this and this is how we're going to get to it. They really have to feed that into the analysts so that they completely understand that, oh crap, this company is doing it. And I think once that switch hits for the analysts, for them to realize that, yeah, no, this isn't some auto company that we were thinking about. They are really hyper focused on the planet and consumption and energy and everything. And I think once that switch flips for a lot of analysts, it's gonna really, well, it's gonna increase the stock, but I think it's really gonna be one of those, the narrative changes. And I think tomorrow is gonna be a big part of that narrative switch for a lot of analysts.
Totally. All right. So I know we're kind of running to the top of the hour. So I think I want to do one thing. We'll end with a cool question. And then, so maybe just like a wild prediction. And then I just want to end with Amy just ending like, how does it feel to be in Austin? Obviously you're hanging out with a bunch of people that I think we're regularly talking to. Probably, Jeff and you, Amy, as well, probably more so than Joe and I. But so let's just end with get educated by Ted. What is the wild thing that they could talk about tomorrow that no one else is mentioning? So let's just do a quick round robin on that. And then again, we'll end with Amy on her thoughts on, just what it's like to be in Austin right now.
I can start with the wildest thing. Nobody has talked about the idea of recycling battery minerals, but this whole huge tonnage problem that we're talking about is something that only needs to be solved once. Once they have enough battery minerals to be able to move the world to a sustainable future, they're done. From that point, those minerals are almost 100% recyclable. So some of the technology that will need to change, we haven't really talked about the 4680 and the way that they can change the battery chemistry based on what minerals are available and what they aren't available. So there'll be some of that, but maybe they start talking about the recycling and they start talking about more of the sourcing.
Jeff, to you.
That was mine, but I'll come up with another one. It's a great one, Amy.
That was mine too. I was thinking of redwood materials the whole time. I was like, crap.
I believe they're going to reveal an imminent ship date for that Model 3 refresh. I think it's imminent. I think it's very, very soon. And it'll plug that portion of the portfolio at a lower price point. Again, it's not the compact car, but it's like, all right, Tesla's got a lower price offering than anything that they ship today. It's simplified, it's better, and it's shipping here. I think that's going to be the surprise. I hope that's a surprise.
All right, so this is my wildest thing that I just thought of. The Gigapress, the 9,000 pound Gigapress that was shipped to Asia, nobody's talked about it. And that really makes me think, like, what if they already started the tooling on this compact vehicle and it's a single casting, which is why it needed to be so big. Like the front and rear is just all in one, and they just put the batteries in, and it's just like that. So that would be my wildest thing that they could announce. Is like, and we're already making them.
Yeah, I feel like everyone hit on everything that I would have thought. I think and again, this is probably not the wildest thing, so it's probably not really answering the question, but I think the more that they talk about their energy business, as we all know, those are going to be the biggest, that's their biggest, I think, hidden giant, I guess is the best word. Not only based on the margins but really as they build that business out and as they ramp it, I think it's going to be the hidden gem. I do think at some point, similar to Apple used to report out how many iPhones they were selling per quarter. They don't even do that anymore. So I think at some point, Tesla, again, this is still probably a bit away, but they're going to stop talking about how many cars they're delivering. It's going to be how much is the energy business, how much is supercharging delivering, how much is, sure, the auto putting out insurance. Again, we could go on FSD at some point. It's just we could go on for days on the income revenues that they're going to be pulling from. But I think the energy business, again, continues to be the hidden gem here. And I think the more the analysts continue to sleep on that, because a lot of that is not really even factored into their current valuation. And, along with the robot and some of these other things. So, yeah, that's just my wild guess. But yeah, we'll just kick it back to Amy. If you could just close us out, how are you? How has it been since you've landed in Austin? And then how are you feeling about tomorrow?
I'm incredibly excited. Austin is a gorgeous city. It's beautiful weather. A lot of cool people are here. And I think that knowing the agenda for tomorrow, we are going to see a lot of things that as long-term followers of Tesla stock are going to be exceptionally meaningful to us. But knowing the agenda of the day, I think that they've really given themselves enough time in a small enough group to have the Wall Street analysts understand the ambition of Tesla's plan, the scope, the massive addressable market, the path to the most valuable company in the world, and the individual steps they're going to get there, along with the robust team that Tesla has in place that is bigger than just Elon Musk, though he's incredibly important to make that happen. And I think that it's going to be looked back as a turning point in Tesla's history. I really liked what each of you said about the different things that are gonna be touched on in the day. I think that's all very important. I can't wait. I'm really excited. And John, you and I will talk afterwards and see what we were right about and what they weren't willing to talk about yet.
Yeah, of course. Joe and Jeff, any closing thoughts before we end?
Joe,
no
please.
notes from me. No notes.
I'm equally excited. Can't wait.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll end it there. Thanks again. Make sure to give all of these wonderful people a follow. Thankfully, their hash or their handles. Can't speak right now. Their handles are, again, Amy at SF 3 underscores. Tahoe. I've literally butchered that a couple times. Make sure to give her a follow. She has been an investor since really the IPO. Tons of knowledge. Jeff is an expert in supply chain, and he just brings, again, a lot of that capital allocation and just really for them to optimize the margin. That's his expertise. So again, at the Jeff Lutz, and then a local friend as well, and obviously Amy's local as well, but Joe from San Joaquin Valley at SJV Tesla. So thank you guys for and gals for all of your input tonight. Amy, enjoy it for us.
Yes,
we're
absolutely.
Just sitting back.
I'll have extra fun for everyone that couldn't be there. So.
Yeah, of course. And make sure to say hi to all the people out there like Sandy Monroe, Corey, Farzad, Herbert, all of them. Tesla Weekend, my Tesla Weekend, all of them.
Sounds great. I will do that.
Sounds good.
I can't wait to talk to everyone afterwards and see what we all think.
Yeah, exactly. Where we were wrong and potentially where we were right. But yeah, again, if you like this video, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And again, feel free to comment. But again, appreciate everyone that joined today.
Thank you.
Thank you.